All guests on ZASLOW Show 2.0 brought to us, of course, by the official beer of the program, Johnny Cuba. European roots with that Caribbean soul. Pick up a refreshing German lager in a can, your local Sedanos, Presidente, Winn-Dixie, Fresco y Mas. That's how you'll enjoy the tournament coming up, of course, all the Sweet 16 action. Make sure you drink responsibly, and don't forget Johnny Cuba's mantra, stay tranquilo. So we are about a week and a half away from WrestleMania. So we got to check in with our pal, Chris Van Vliet. You can, of course, check out his podcast, Insight with Chris Van Vliet, wherever you get your podcasts. You can check out his YouTube channel as well. As Chris, you are the premier interviewer, if I will, of the biggest names in the world of pro wrestling. Like, you're the guy, man. There's no one bigger than you right now. How you doing?
I mean, I don't know if that is true, but I will say thank you, and I appreciate the kind words. I'm doing amazing. I am jacked up for WrestleMania 40, Zaslow.
Yeah. It's going to be. I'm actually doing a WrestleMania preview show on ESPN Radio.
Huge.
And the reason, amazing, right? And the reason that I'm telling you that is, it just goes to show WWE is on fire right now. Like, I know you're a product of the Attitude Era. You love that. Of course, I loved it as well. I mean, I grew up with the golden era, in the 80s. I love the Attitude Era as well. This has got to be as hot as the product has been since the Attitude Era, right?
It's hotter than it's been in a very, very long time. And what's interesting is we've got these two very powerful forces working up against each other, right? Nostalgia is so powerful, right? Like, we love remembering things because it takes us back to a time and a place in our life. But then you've got recency bias, like butting right up against it. I just saw that last week on Raw or SmackDown. Like, nothing could possibly be better than that thing that's fresh in my mind here. I don't care which one wins over here. It's just a super exciting time to be a wrestling fan right now. And I think that you can tell that wrestling is reaching new audiences and getting bigger when you meet people who are new wrestling fans. Because for the longest time, you were talking to people who had been watching their entire life. Now we're getting brand new fans who have never watched before. And you're also getting a lot of lapsed fans. Man, I haven't watched in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. And now they're back and they're just engrossed in what's happening.
Now, you are a huge Rock fan. You love him. There you go. You got the people's eyebrow going. You love him personally. He's been very good to you on a personal level. You love him also. He's your favorite wrestler. We've talked about this before. I love everything we are seeing from him right now. He is a big-time heel. He is the final boss. He left Cody Rhodes bloodied after Monday Night Raw. Are you rooting for The Rock in this story? Is he still your guy?
I mean, it's hard not to root for the Rock just in general right now. Like, when his music hits, I feel like if you were in the other room and you hear that music, or, you had the volume turned down, all of your attention now is focused on what the Rock's going to say or what the Rock's going to do. Like, this has become must-watch TV. And it hasn't been that way in wrestling in a long, long time. I also think, Zaslow, a strong argument could be made that this is some of the best work that Dwayne Johnson has ever done. Of course, he's been in a lot of great movies, a lot of great TV shows. Of course, we remember his work in the 90s in the Attitude Era and then in the early 2000s as Hollywood Rock. But if you really look at Dwayne Johnson's career as a whole, I feel like this is like the character that he was put on this earth to play, and he is playing it to perfection.
I want to get your thoughts on how we got to this place with Cody, The Rock, Roman Reigns. Are you of the opinion that this was always the plan, or that they had to pivot because the fans did get very angry at the idea of it not being Cody versus Roman, it being Rock versus Roman? I'll tell you first, I think some things may have changed, but I believe in general, this was always the plan. I have such a hard time believing, Chris, this story is so amazing right now. The Rock's character is so amazing right now. How could this have been plan B? This had to be plan A. It's too good.
And look, since Triple H has been in charge since SummerSlam of 2022, he really hasn't let us down. It would be wild to think that Cody wins the Royal Rumble, which of course means he punches his ticket to the main event at WrestleMania. It would be wild to think that Triple H could be so far out of the loop here and so removed from what people would be thinking that he would think that that'd be okay to just insert The Rock in here and have Cody just go off to the side on some other sort of mission. It just doesn't add up to me. Triple H has had his finger on the pulse and has been delivering what people want to see ever since he's been the guy in charge. I just can't see how this could have possibly been the original plan. I don't know. And I'd love to be wrong here, but whatever the case is, this is so good. What we're getting right now is so good.
What's going to happen the first night of WrestleMania? Now, I know you're going to be there. Tell everybody everything you got going on. A week and a half in Philadelphia. I mean, WrestleMania has become not just a 2-night event, Saturday and Sunday, but it's really like a 5-day event. All right. Tell everybody what you got going on in Philadelphia.
Yeah, that's the kind of the cool thing. Like anybody who's ever done anything in the world of wrestling will be in the city where WrestleMania is. So for me, I'm going to be there at WrestleCon. That's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. There's a massive list of huge stars that are going to be there. And then if you go all the way down to like the very bottom of the list, you're like, oh, hey, there's Chris Van Vliet. He's going to be there too. So I'm going to be at WrestleCon. So if you're going to WrestleCon, I would love to see you there. You've obviously got SmackDown, NXT, Hall of Fame. You got WrestleMania night 1 and 2. You got Raw. It's stacked. And there's also a WWE junket on Friday morning. So I'll be doing interviews with a ton of different superstars on Friday morning. I'm just stoked to be there. This is my 14th WrestleMania that I've either gone to or I've covered. My first one was back
14 in a row.
No, so it was 18 was my very first one. I'm from Toronto. So, WrestleMania was in Toronto, Rock Hogan, my favorite match of all time. Then it was 27 and then pretty much everyone since.
Right. Yeah, it's going to be awesome. So for folks who are listening or watching this, you can go check out. Chris has got a lot of stuff going on there that whole weekend, obviously in Philadelphia. What's going to happen that first night with the tag match? Because I look at it, Rock and Roman versus Seth Rollins and Cody. I don't see a scenario where Rock or Roman get pinned that night. Like, what's going to happen that night?
I don't know. And I think what's so great about that is that's what makes it exciting, because there's any number of different scenarios here that make sense. And also the thing that's so cool about this is that night 1 has these important repercussions for night 2. Like what happens on night 1 is going to be a cliffhanger, because if Rock and Roman win, then we have all of the rest of Saturday night and all of Sunday until the main event to go, oh, what does this mean? What's going to happen? Is Cody going to win? And if, the reverse happens, Cody and Seth win, then it's a cliffhanger as well, because we go, now what happens here? Is Cody still going to be able to do this? Will Roman win somehow? This is what I love about it. And I think that people forget that at its core, Raw, SmackDown, Dynamite, Collision, Rampage, Impact, these are television programs. And wrestling is at its best when great stories are being told. And that's what we're getting right now. I think that you could make a strong case that Cody and Seth win night 1, which leads to a clean match, hopefully, on night 2. But I also think that in the world of WWE, you can make a really strong case that it's going to be bloodline rules, that Rock and Roman come out on top on night 1, which leads to bloodline rules on night 2. And then really anything goes. I've been hearing a lot of people saying, Rock's going to end up turning on Cody. That's certainly one scenario. Seth
not after what
Cody.
We just saw on Monday night. I got a hard time believing that part now,
It's just anything could really happen here. And I also think that WWE knows that their fans are smart. And I think there's a tie in here, like going all the way back. Who hit Stone Cold with the car? It was Rikishi. Rikishi said he did it for The Rock. He did it for the people. Like there's a tie-in there with that family. And it's just like, there's so many layers to this. And we had such a long period of time, ZASLOW, where we were complaining about main events. And that dragged on for a long time. Now we're at a point in time where there's so many options for great main events. It's almost like an embarrassment of riches.
Were you upset a year ago when Cody did not finish his story? And I ask you that because for the people who were upset that Cody didn't beat Roman, if he did, we wouldn't have all of this right now.
I wasn't upset about it. But what I think is so funny is from top to bottom, start to finish, WrestleMania 39 was pretty freaking phenomenal. And it was just so funny to me how many fans didn't like WrestleMania 39 because they didn't like the last 3 seconds of the main event on night 2. And that just doesn't add up to me because that was a great match. Yes, there was interference at the end. Yes, the guy you wanted to win did not win. But that doesn't mean that the show as a whole wasn't great. What I was upset about is Cody loses. And I think a lot of people either don't remember this or choose not to remember this. Then he goes into a program with Brock Lesnar and immediately loses. And it's like, well, what's the point here? Like that was the thing that didn't add up to me. And obviously Cody ended up winning at SummerSlam and they had that great moment with Brock raising his hand. But it was just weird to me that he loses at WrestleMania and then continues to lose again after that. That was the thing that didn't really add up. But again, if we're going back to this analogy that wrestling is a television show, which it is, it's not even an analogy, it's just a fact. Wrestling's a TV show. If I'm watching Game of Thrones or I'm watching Succession and an episode ends and I'm not really sure what's happening and I have questions about, the storyline and where it's going, I don't complain about it. I just trust the process. I just put on the next episode and go, oh, that's what they were doing here. Oh, it all makes sense now. And I just wish we could do more of that in wrestling.
Of course. I mean, I use that, the Game of Thrones analogy all the time. Like, certain character gets killed off on Game of Thrones. Do you say you're not watching anymore? You're mad at the writers. Like, this is the show. This is the show. I'm totally with you. Now, I think Cody's losing again on night 2.
Wow, that is a bold prediction.
Yep. I don't think it ends for Roman. I think he walks away with the title still. What do you think?
I think you can make a strong case either way. And I love that you can make a strong case either way. I think there's a lot.
What are you rooting for? What are you rooting for?
I'm not picking a guy or something, but if I had to make a decision right now, I think that it makes sense for Cody to win. In my opinion, it also makes a lot of sense on the flip side for Roman to continue. I will say this, there's a lot more story to be told with the bloodline. Yeah. And I think that story with the bloodline can continue to be told whether Roman's the champion or not. If Roman loses, if Cody wins, I think that Roman goes away for a little while and we don't see him. And then when he does return, it becomes a big thing. But I will say this, even if Cody doesn't win at WrestleMania 40, Cody is for sure going to be a multiple-time world champion. Like, this is a guy who, over the course of his career, as long as he stays healthy, is going to be a 3-time, 5-time, 8-time, 10-time champion. It's just, the big question is, does he win it, in a week and a half? Does he win it at WrestleMania? I still think yes, but I feel like a really strong case could be made either way.
Yeah, but I just love not knowing.
Me too.
Going in and we don't know. It's so good. I do strongly believe that Roman wins again, but
what is it? What is it for you? What makes you say that?
Well, I think number one, and this is not from an actual storyline perspective, I think WWE is pretty big on the idea of their current stars being atop the historical lists. And I think they want Roman to pass Hulk Hogan. I think they really wanted Gunther to pass Honky Tonk Man. This is a current guy. I think a few years ago, they really wanted New Day to pass Demolition. That's a current tag team. I think they want a current guy, Roman Reigns, to be a top Hulk Hogan, and then maybe eventually also be a top Bruno Sammartino. I think that, or if it's Pedro Morales, I forget which one. But I know they want him ahead of Hulk Hogan. I think they want the current guy ahead of the guy from 35, 40 years ago.
Well, he's not going to break the Bruno record. It's like 9 years. So I don't think that one happens. But if he breaks the Hulk Hogan record, I think it's September. I think it's mid-September for him to break.
They're so close, they're so close.
And look, I think that you could make an argument of Roman wins, takes us all the way through SummerSlam, Survivor Series. Maybe there's something when they go to Netflix in January. You know, I think we could get back to a point, and it hasn't happened in a long time. Like Raw is interesting, right? SmackDown's interesting. You got to watch. But you know that when there's a title match on Raw or SmackDown, there's going to be some sort of weird interference. There's not going to be a clean finish, or it's just, you know, titles don't really change hands that often on Raw or SmackDown. I have a feeling, it's just a gut feeling. When they go to Netflix, I think they're going to do whatever they can to make sure that you have to watch when this is live. Like, oh my gosh,
that was the first episode when SmackDown moved to Fox. Brock Lesnar won the title from Kofi Kingston on their debut episode on Fox.
Right. So there's precedent set here, but I just feel like things are going to change when they go to Netflix. And I feel like the entire industry is going to be watching. I don't just mean the industry of wrestling. I mean television / streaming / broadcasting. All eyes are going to be on, you guys think you can do a weekly live show on a streamer? Okay. And you're going to pay, by the way, $1 billion a year for it. Okay. If I'm Amazon Prime or HBO Max, I'm watching to see what you're doing, and I'm probably going to copy you if it works.
I'm very in on Roman remaining the champ. I think, like you said, I think there's still, does he need to have the title to continue Bloodline storyline? No, probably not. But I think there's so much meat left on that bone with Roman still the champion. I don't think he's giving up the belt anytime soon. I don't. And I think people are going to freak out, and it's going to be a wild scene, man. I think it's going to be great.
But then does it hurt Cody, right? Because then you've won 2 Rumbles, you've gone to 2 WrestleMania main events, you've lost both of them. What do you do now? You clearly Roman Reigns has your number. What do you do now?
Let him be the guy who can't win the big one. And then when he finally does, it's that much bigger. I mean, isn't the past year testament to that? We all thought, and when I say we, I don't mean me and maybe not necessarily you. This was the opportunity for WWE to cash in on Cody. Bullshit. The opportunity's here again a year later. Like, he hasn't lost anything. We're still in the exact same spot.
What's really interesting about this whole Cody situation is through all of this, through this Bloodline storyline, especially with the stuff with The Rock, Cody's become the biggest babyface in all of pro wrestling.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because at the end of last year, at the end of 2023, Cody was not the biggest babyface. They were trying to make him the biggest babyface, but the biggest babyface through most of 2023, say it with me, was LA Knight. Yeah. And it took this storyline. It took The Rock coming back on day one. It took this whole storyline to make Cody be the babyface that he is now.
Yeah. It's really going to be great stuff. What else sticks out for WrestleMania 42? What else are you really looking forward to?
I think that Drew finally having the chance to have a true WrestleMania moment, that's going to be a big one. And that match is going to be fantastic. The work that Drew's doing right now is like this arrogant heel. Like it's very, very good. And yes, Drew won the championship at WrestleMania 36. But does it really count, when you're in front of nobody and there's literally, like, that was early days of the pandemic and there's literally like crickets as he's winning this championship. So Drew having the chance to win this in front of a sold out stadium, that's a moment that I can't wait for. Like, if I'm a betting man, I'm betting on Drew McIntyre to win that championship from Seth Rollins.
I absolutely think Drew wins the title. And I think that, as you could see from the other night, that Drew McIntyre CM Punk story is going to continue to be amazing. I really felt this past Monday Night on Raw. I thought CM Punk, for the first time, maybe even including when he debuted at AEW, I thought for the first time, I'm like, yeah, this is CM Punk. I thought that segment on Monday night was incredible with Punk and Rollins and McIntyre.
Well, look, Raw as a whole, and I know this is subjective, but Raw as a whole on Monday was one of the best episodes of Raw.
Yep.
Maybe one of the best episodes of Raw in like 22, 23 years. Like, it was that good. Every segment had you glued to the TV. And I agree. That CM Punk reminded me of the CM Punk that we used to see 10 years ago in WWE. Not someone who was like saying a promo that he had written in the back. Like, this just felt like, here's a mic for 10 minutes. Talk. And he did.
I agree. Yeah, it felt like CM Punk to me. You obviously Insight with Chris Van Vliet gets all the huge wrestling stars. Who has been your favorite to sit down with recently?
The interview I did with John Cena a few weeks ago is my favorite interview that I've ever done in my career. And I've been fortunate to talk to John Cena. This was our 5th interview together. I had him for an hour and then he extended it another 15 minutes. Like, he was so kind. So it's an hour and 15 minutes of just getting into John Cena's mindset. Like, who is he? What makes him tick? And then I asked him a lot of questions that I just always want to know the answer to. Like, how did he return at the Royal Rumble 2008? Like, how did he come back from injury? They said it would be almost a year and he came back in 3 months. Gave me a great answer there. He went into detail about what the plans were for him to turn heel right before Rock Hogan, WrestleMania 28. Like, he went into detail that he had never talked about before. Like, he had a new theme song. He had low cut singlets that he was going to wear. He was going to be the opposite of hustle, loyalty, respect. Like, I was just sitting there in awe. Like, I can't believe he's saying this. Like, this is so good. There's a reason John Cena is in the position that he's in his Hollywood career. And he just treats everybody a certain way. And I was very fortunate to be able to share that conversation with him. And if you haven't checked it out, I would love for you to go check out that interview with John Cena.
Who is the best pro wrestler turned actor?
It's got to be Batista.
It is. I know it is.
Just in terms of the range that he plays, like Knock at the Cabin is like this. It's like this it's very internal. Like, he's playing with all these like tiny little subtle micro expressions. Like, it's so good. And then on the flip side of that, you've got Guardians of the Galaxy and what he does with Drax and just Blade Runner. Like, he's just played so many different types of characters.
I just watched him in Dune this past weekend.
He's so good in Dune. Yeah. So I think it's Batista, just in the fact that, like, he just enjoys the craft of acting and getting into these characters. And that is not a slight at all against John Cena or against The Rock. It's just Batista seems to be just operating in different kinds of roles.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's Batista. And I love what Cena and Rock do on the screen, but it's Batista. Who is the wrestler that you have not had the chance to sit down with that you're dying to?
There's a bunch, and I hope that they happen soon, but some of the ones that are like fresh in my mind that I really want to talk to, AJ Styles. He's one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. And I can't wait to talk to him about everything. TNA, WWE, all of it. Randy Orton, never had the chance to talk to Randy Orton. And that's one I would love to make happen. Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels.
Oh man.
There's quite a few, and fingers crossed. If everything goes well this year, maybe we tick, 1 or 2 of those off the list.
Bret Hart, my all-time favorite. You got to get Bret Hart. I would love to hear you with him, man.
And look, I'm a fellow Canadian, so Bret meant a lot to me growing up.
Yeah. Movies. What are you into these days with movies? What have you seen recently that you've enjoyed?
So obviously I interviewed John Cena for that movie, Ricky Stenicki. Have you seen this yet? His movie on Amazon Prime?
I haven't. It's funny.
It's hilarious. And I mean, John Cena, he goes all the way with the comedy that he does. Like, this is a very hard R-rated comedy. He's not afraid to go all the way in and be a little bit raunchy. And
well, he does that movie Blockers, which is one of the funniest movies I've ever seen.
Yeah, no, that's so good. So I would, if you haven't checked out Ricky Stenicki, like go check that one out. I also just did a junket for a movie that is coming out soon, starring Henry Cavill and Alex Pettyfer. It's the new Guy Ritchie film called The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. Okay. It's a fantastic action film. So go check that one out. And this is such an interesting time for movies. Like, right after the Oscars, I feel like there's this little lull, right? Because there's this lull before like Memorial Day, then into the summer, and then we get all the blockbusters. So like, I feel like we're ramping up for some big stuff. Obviously, Dune 2 is, an incredible movie. So Dune 2, first see Dune and then go see Dune 2. There's a lot of great stuff right now.
I saw Dune 2 this past weekend. I thought it was a pretty perfect movie. I mean, it's really good. Denis
Villeneuve he's such a great filmmaker. Like some of his, like, oh man, he doesn't miss. He does not miss.
Have you seen the new Ghostbusters?
I've not seen the new Ghostbusters yet. Have you?
Yeah, I saw it this weekend also. It was fine. Like, there's nothing to dislike about it. It was fine. And maybe that's because I loved Ghostbusters Afterlife a few years ago, and which is heavy on the nostalgia, and I loved it. I didn't love this one. It's fine, you know.
All right. It's fine. It's just fine.
Yeah, it's fine. Chris, excellent job. Really great catching up with you as always. Tell everybody again how they can listen and hear watch all of your stuff.
It's great to see you, ZASLOW. Thank you again for having me on. Keep up the great work. And if you listen to podcasts, go check mine out. It's called Insight with Chris Van Vliet, wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also check it out on YouTube, just my name, at Chris Van Vliet. And if you're going to WrestleMania, it'd be great to see you. So stop by and say what's up.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Chris. We'll talk again soon, man.
Good to see you, my man.